Most cars don't die of old age. They're slowly killed by their owners. Tiny mistakes done every day quietly destroy your engine, your transmission, and your wallet, and mechanics rarely tell you why. But today, that changes. In this video, you'll uncover hidden hacks and secret mechanics that never share the same tricks that can take a car from 100,000 miles to over 700,000 without major repairs. We've packed an entire hour with the most overlooked habits, fixes, and insider tips that keep your car running like new for decades. Watch closely, even one of these hacks could save you thousands. Doing this will reset your car and fix it for free. Quick checks. Before resetting. Before trying high-tech fixes, look for the easy stuff that's often overlooked. For example, a very common culprit is a loose gas cap. An improperly tightened cap releases fuel vapor and can trigger the check engine light for no other reason. Park, tighten the gas cap, and see if the light goes off. Also inspect under the hood. Check for any disconnected vacuum hoses, unplugged sensors, or frayed wires. A loose connector or vacuum leak can cause strange engine behavior. One auto news outlet even advises looking over the engine bay for loose hoses or electrical plugs, since simply fixing those can restore proper operation. If you find and fix any such issue, your car may immediately run better at no cost. Before we dive into the process, hit the subscribe button to make sure you will get the notification for our latest videos. Rebooting your car's ECU. If basic checks don't solve it, try the ultimate reset. Cut power to your car's computer. This is like pressing the reset button on your laptop. Modern cars store adaptive settings and trouble codes in the ECU/ECM, and cutting the battery forces all those modules to restart and clear volatile data. Here's how. Turn off the ignition and all accessories. Make sure the key is out and everything is off. Open the hood and locate the battery. Identify the negative terminal, usually black, and the positive terminal, usually red. Disconnect the negative cable. Use a wrench to loosen the negative terminal bolt, then remove the cable and keep it away from the battery. On most cars, it's enough to leave it off for 30 to 60 seconds. Reconnect the battery. First, put the negative cable back on and tighten it. Then reconnect the positive if you removed it earlier. Once reconnected, start the car. By doing this off and on reboot, you have cleared many stored error codes and reset the ECU to factory defaults. In practical terms, this can make temporary glitches disappear. For example, if a sensor gave a brief false reading, rebooting often turns off the check engine light and lets the car run smoothly again. Kilmer notes that this one step of disconnecting the battery effectively resets the vehicle's computer systems and can resolve minor electronic hiccups. In short, you've hit the reset button on the car. Many owners report that after doing this, engine idles stabilize and warning lights vanish. Important. When you cut power like this, the car forgets some settings. Don't be surprised if your radio presets, clock, or power window auto features are reset. Dealership service tips warn that the infotainment system may need reprogramming afterward. Just note that you'll need to set those few things again after the reset. Alternate reset. Removing the ECU/ECM fuse. If you prefer not to disconnect the battery to preserve stereo or computer memory, there's another free trick. Pull the fuse for the engine's computer. Each car has a fuse box with fuses labeled for different modules. Find the fuse labeled ECU, ECM, or PCM. With the ignition off, carefully remove that fuse, wait about 10 to 15 minutes, then reinsert it. This cuts power only to the engine computer and causes it to reset in the same way as the battery trick. After replacing the fuse, starting the car, you'll have effectively rebooted the ECU without touching the main battery terminals. This fuse method works well on some modern cars that have multiple memory circuits. Just be careful. Make sure the fuse is indeed the ECU fuse and keep track of where it goes. After using this method, you'll still want to do a throttle relearn to let the car readapt. Relearning. After the reset. After any computer reset, the car will enter a learning phase. The ECU has forgotten its adaptive fuel trims and idle settings, so it needs to recalibrate. A good first step is a throttle body relearn. AutoZone details a manual procedure used by many vehicles. Turn the ignition to on and wait about 10 seconds. This powers the ECU up. Floor the accelerator pedal fully, then release it. Do this several times. Start the engine and let it idle for about 10 minutes without touching the gas. This allows the computer to adjust idle and throttle closed open positions. Performing this relearn routine helps prevent a lumpy idle or hesitation. Additionally, your transmission will relearn its shift patterns. Since many automatic cars adapt shift points over time, the battery reset also wipes out those learned patterns. After resetting, simply drive normally a mix of city and highway miles, and the TCM will rebuild its data. Scotty Kilmer notes that clearing the data can even improve erratic shifting, because the computer will forget a possibly bad learning it had retained. Overall, plan on taking the car for a thorough drive. Auto parts experts point out that a full drive cycle is sometimes required for all the OBD2 monitors to run their tests. In practice, just drive normally for a few days, and the system will restore readiness and adaptive settings. Be patient. It can take several miles or days before everything is fully recalibrated. Inspecting for hidden issues. While resets and relearns can clear up many issues, always double-check for physical problems. Inspect spark plugs, air filter, and fluid levels if relevant. Although not directly reset by these tricks, they can cause drivability issues too. And consider adding a fuel system cleaner to the gas tank. A foamy injector cleaner can sometimes clear a fouled sensor and temporarily turn off a false warning light. While sources like Straight Dope forums note fuel additives as a possible cheap fix for sensor errors, keep in mind these are supplementary. They're worth trying if the reset cleared the light but you suspect the warning might return. Free diagnostic services and tools. Take advantage of the fact that all 1996 or newer US cars have an OBD2 port. Many auto parts retailers will scan your car's computer for free and give you a printed report. For example, O'Reilly Auto Parts offers a free VeriScan. Any 1996 plus vehicle can be hooked up to their code reader at no cost. You walk in with your car, and a parts pro will plug into the OBD2 port, read any trouble codes, and email you the report of possible causes and fixes. AutoZone has a similar free service where they pull codes and give you an easy-to-understand report of which systems are triggering lights. These services are completely free, and they can pinpoint any persistent fault codes. Note: staff will generally read the codes for you but won't erase them themselves. If you want to clear the codes, you're usually allowed to do it yourself while at the store. Just keep in mind, erasing a code doesn't fix the problem. It only turns off the light temporarily. O'Reilly specifically warns that clearing the code will only succeed if the underlying issue is resolved. Otherwise, the light will just come back. In other words, use the free scan to get code info and address the root cause. If you like DIY, you can also buy a cheap OBD2 Bluetooth dongle and use a free smartphone app like Car Scanner or Torque to read/clear codes at home. These apps essentially do the same thing as the store scanner. Again, clearing codes with a tool is akin to hitting reset. It can silence the light, but you should then test drive to ensure the problem really went away. Things to watch out. For remember that a reset is not a fix for serious mechanical issues. If your car had a genuine problem, the reset only hides the symptom, not the cause. For example, O'Reilly notes that if the cause isn't fixed, the check engine light will inevitably reactivate, especially after the car completes its drive cycle tests. So always use these reset tricks as a first step. If the light comes back, or if the car still runs poorly, you'll need proper repairs using the diagnostic info you gathered. Also be aware of emissions readiness. Clearing codes resets all the OBD2 monitors. In states with smog checks, you typically need all monitors ready to pass. If you've reset your car, you may have to drive several days or a specific drive cycle to let every test run their course. The OBD Auto Doctor explains that after a power loss, all monitors show not ready until you drive normally. So if your car was near test time, plan accordingly or clear monitors earlier. Finally, always reconnect the battery properly and watch the engine after. If any lights blink or the car idles terribly after reconnecting, double-check your steps. It's a good idea to clean the battery terminals before reconnecting. In most cases, however, this reset approach is safe. A dealership guide confirms that resetting the computer by disconnecting the battery generally does no harm and can clear trivial issues. Using these tricks, you now have a powerful set of free tools to try before paying for repairs. Many drivers find that these steps clear their warning lights and smooth out performance at zero cost. It's essentially the automotive equivalent of turning it off and on again. Give it a try the next time your car acts up. You might just fix it for free. And if the problem persists, at least you'll have valuable error codes and the knowledge to tackle the real issue. 11 habits to make your car last over 500,000 miles without repairs. Habit number 1. Use the parking brake every time. This is the cheapest transmission insurance you'll ever buy. When you throw an automatic into P and walk away, a small steel pawl inside the gearbox becomes the only thing stopping 2 tons of car from rolling. Park on a slope enough times without the parking brake, and that pal takes repeated shock loads. The next owner gets a mystery clunk or a failed transmission lock. The fix is simple and invisible. Stop, keep your foot brake pressed, set the parking brake, then shift to park and release the foot brake. Now the car's weight sits on the rear brakes where it belongs, not on a delicate pal. Do this on flat ground too. The habit keeps the mechanism free and prevents cables and calipers from seizing through disuse. Over hundreds of thousands of cycles, you avoid wear on the pawl, avoid binding loads on the parking gear, and avoid that horrid slam when you pull out of a steep spot. Nothing to buy, minutes saved in repairs. Number 2. Never run on fumes. Modern in-tank fuel pumps rely on gasoline for cooling and lubrication. Run the tank low and you expose that pump, letting it gulp hot fuel vapor and air. The pump overheats, the brushes wear faster, and fine debris from the bottom of the tank gets dragged into the strainer and filter. Do this for years, and you inherit intermittent lean running, a dying pump, and injector wear, exactly the kind of random failure that strands cars at 180,000. The long life habit is boring. Refuel before the quarter mark. That keeps the pump submerged, temperature stable, and sediment undisturbed. You also reduce the odds of sucking vapor on climbs or under hard throttle, which can spike knock and wash protective oil film from cylinder walls. Bonus: topped-up tanks resist internal corrosion in humid climates because there's less air and moisture condensing in the headspace. A small refuel habit now is a big repair you never have to make later. Number 3. Shift like a mechanic. Gearboxes don't blow up. Drivers shock them to death. The 2 silent gearbox killers most people never consider. 1 shifting between reverse and drive while the car is still rolling, and 2 resting a hand on the shifter or power braking launches. Rolling shifts slam clutches and bands that aren't fully applied yet. A second saved is hundreds of heat cycles lost. Resting your hand on a manual's lever preloads shift forks against spinning hubs, lapping them a few microns at a time for years. And brake torque launches cook fluid and shear friction material. The forever car routine. Come to a complete stop before any RD shift. Move the lever only to shift, not to lean. Pull away with normal throttle. Let the software do its job in autos and match revs cleanly in manuals. Add scheduled fluid services for temperature control, and your weak gearbox quietly outlives 2 engines. Number 4. Stop stacking cold starts. Engines wear most when cold. Thick oil, tight clearances, rich mixtures, and condensed moisture all conspire in the first minutes. If your life is 3 5-minute hops instead of 1 15-minute drive, you multiply those high-wear minutes while never letting moisture and fuel boil out of the oil. Over years, this shows up as sticky rings, varnished lifters, and acid-bitten bearings. The 500,000 approach. Bunch errands. Take the longer loop once a day, and finish with 5 extra easy minutes so the oil and exhaust get genuinely hot. In winter, don't idle endlessly. Start, let the idle settle for 30 to 60 seconds, then drive gently so everything warms together: coolant, oil, ATF, wheel bearings. That's when oil film stabilizes, PCV systems purge condensation, and cats light off. 1 warm cycle beats 3 cold stabs every time, and it costs nothing but slightly better planning. Number 5. Idle time. Engines don't just need air, they need clean, metered air. A tiny leak past the air filter lets dust act like liquid sandpaper on rings, cylinder walls, and compressor blades. Over the years, that's why some mystery low-compression engines die early. Make a ritual of opening the airbox at service time. Check that the filter seats evenly on its gasket, the lid tabs aren't cracked, and the snorkel isn't split. If you run an oiled performance element, don't over-oil it. Excess oil films the map sensor and skews fueling, which washes cylinder walls and fills the oil with fuel. Lightly vacuum the clean side of the box, wipe the MAF housing with the correct electronics cleaner, and inspect for dust trails. They reveal leaks you can't see. Replace filters early in dusty climates and after wildfire, construction, or off-pavement seasons. On turbo cars, feel the inlet couplers and clamps. Loose joints ingest dirt and shed rubber crumbs into the compressor. Perfect air sealing quietly preserves crosshatch, stabilizes trims, and keeps power consistent deep into six figures. Number 6. Maintain the electrical heart. Electronics run the modern engine. Low voltage and bad grounds turn good cars into gremlin cars that eat components. Corroded battery posts add resistance, forcing the alternator to work at high output longer. Loose or dirty engine and chassis grounds create sensor drift and noisy signals. The ECU swings fuel trims, coils work harder, and modules heat soak. The long life routine, once or twice a year, disconnect and clean battery posts and clamps to bright metal, coat lightly with dielectric grease, and tighten correctly. Follow main grounds, clean and refasten them. Avoid deep discharges. Don't run high-draw accessories with the engine off, and replace old batteries proactively before winter. If you've added amps or light bars, size your wiring and fusing properly and consider a higher output alternator. Stable, clean power. Quietly prolongs every control module, coil, injector, and pump in the car. Number 7. Wash like a preservationist. Cosmetics matter mechanically. Salt, clay, and oily grit hold moisture against steel lines, unibody seams, subframes, and fasteners. That's not just ugly. It seizes brake bleeders, weakens fuel and brake lines, and turns simple repairs into torch and extractor jobs that kill cars early. Adopt a preservation wash. Hit an underbody rinse every few weeks in winter or after beach trips. At home, use a gentle spray to flush wheel wells, subframe pockets, and pinch weld seams. Pop the hood only when cool and mist off. Crud around radiator supports, battery trays, and the top of the transmission. Grime is insulation that traps heat. Clear sunroof drains, cowl drains, and trunk gutter channels so water doesn't creep into body modules. Finish with a quick rinse of the condenser, radiator fins, and a pass of wax on painted seams. The car doesn't just look better, it stays serviceable past 300,000, which is when most rusted fasteners start writing repair estimates. Number 8. Drive lighter. Weight is a force multiplier for wear. An extra 100 to 200 pounds squats suspension bushings, heats brake rotors, and makes the engine and transmission work harder on every hill. Permanently hauling just in case, gear, toolboxes, or roof racks you never use is a slow-motion longevity tax. Worse, towing or loading beyond ratings cooks ATF and flexes the unibody, which shows up years later as creaks, cracked seam sealer, and uneven bushing wear. The 500,000-mile habit: clear the trunk, ditch the dead roof rack, and respect payload and tow limits. When you must tow, use the right hitch, add an auxiliary transcooler if the platform is known to run hot, and keep speeds sane. You'll feel it immediately in brake smell and trans temps. You'll see it a decade later when the suspension still aligns, and the gearbox hasn't glazed its clutches. Number 9. Service all the fluids. Everyone changes engine oil. The long runners quietly refresh everything else. Automatic transmission fluid, transfer case and differential oils, brake fluid, power steering fluid, and coolant all age from heat, load, and moisture. Old ATF loses friction modifiers. Shifts get longer and hotter, and heat kills clutches. Brake fluid absorbs water. Corrosion blooms in calipers and ABS modulators, and boiling points drop during mountain descents. Coolant loses inhibitors, aluminum pits, heater cores clog, and head gaskets suffer. The durable driver's schedule, conservative mileage-based services, even when a manual claims lifetime fluid. Lifetime usually means warranty lifetime, not 500K. Use high-quality fluids that meet the spec and record dates and mileage. You're not just preventing one failure, you're controlling temperature, the real life limiter on most lubricated systems. Habit 10. Keep crankcase breathing healthy. The positive crankcase ventilation system is the unsung longevity part most drivers never touch. Its job: pull blow-by gases out of the crankcase so they don't condense into sludge, thicken the oil, and attack bearings and seals. When the PCV valve/diaphragm sticks, or the separator clogs, crankcase pressure rises. Oil finds the next weakest seal, and you inherit mysterious leaks, burnt oil smell, and rising consumption. The long life habit: treat PCV hardware like a service item. Every 30 to 60,000, inspect or replace the PCV valve or diaphragm, clean the hoses and orifices, and confirm the fresh air side of the system is clear. In winter or short trip use, mayo-like condensate in the valve cover means the PCV isn't evacuating moisture, lengthen drives, and refresh the valve. Turbo engines often use an oil separator. Cracked housings and hardened seals are common. Upgrade to the latest revision. A breathing crankcase keeps oil dry and additive-rich, prevents gasket creep, stabilizes idle trims, and quietly extends bearing and ring life well beyond what most owners ever see. Number 11. Fix small problems immediately. Cars rarely jump from perfect to dead. They whisper: a weeping hose clamp, a faint belt chirp on humid mornings, a coolant smell after shutdown, a slow crank at dawn, a vibration at 65 miles per hour that wasn't there last month. The 500K driver pounces on those whispers. Tighten or replace a clamp before the hose lip erodes. Swap an idler before a bearing seizes and shreds a belt. Balance a wheel before it saws your dampers and arms. Change a marginal battery before low-voltage spikes toast a module. Build mini inspections into refuels and washes. Quick hood pop, glance at coolant level and color, oil level between changes, crust on battery posts, dampness under the water pump. CV boot. Integrity, inner tire, shoulders for cupping. Wetness at caliper sliders. 10 minutes monthly prevents $3,000 stories. The difference between a car that suddenly needed everything and one that never needs anything is often 30 seconds of curiosity at the right time. Doing this will make your car's AC blow twice as cold. Number 1. Purge the oven. Before you ask AC to cool it. When a car sits in direct sun, the interior can hit brutal temperatures. If you jump in and slam the AC button, you're asking a small evaporator to chill superheated air, plastic, foam, and glass all radiating heat back at you. Flip the script. Windows down, blower on high, AC off for the first minute while you pull away. This flushes the top layer of furnace air quickly. Watch your steering wheel stop radiating heat and the dash temp drop. That's your signal to seal the cabin and switch the AC on. Now the evaporator isn't fighting a sauna. It's working on air already dragged closer to ambient. Result: faster pull down, colder vents in the first mile, and less compressor abuse. Most drivers skip this because it feels counterintuitive. Don't. Heat purge first, then chill. It's the quickest free gain you'll feel immediately. Number 2. Recirculation is a superpower. Recirc. Max AC is misunderstood. Hitting it immediately forces the system to recool cabin air that's hotter than outdoors, which delays comfort. Use fresh air mode during your purge and early cool down. Once the cabin temperature nears or beats outside air, flip to recirc. Now you're cycling already cooled, lower humidity air across the evaporator, compounding the chill each pass. Vent temps plunge because you're no longer dragging in warm, moist outside air. On longer drives, crack back to fresh air briefly if things feel stuffy, then return to recirc. In modern cars, recirc also eases compressor load once the cabin stabilizes, because heat gain falls and the system cycles less aggressively. The common failure is recirc from the start. which feels logical but quietly wastes minutes. Time it right, purge to fresh to recirc. That sequence alone separates a fine AC from a freezer. Number 3, dial for coldest output. Mid-temp settings blend in warm air to hit a target number that dilutes your coldest possible output. Set climate to LO or full cold so the blend door never sneaks heat back in. Then adjust fan speed for colder vent temps. One notch below, max often wins. At full blast, air flashes across the evaporator so fast it can't shed as much heat. Slightly slower dwell time equals colder discharge air, even if volume is a hair lower. Direct most flow to face level with a bit to the floor. Angle a couple vents up, cold air sinks, so throwing it high helps it tumble and sweep heat off glass and plastics. If you have dual zone, sync zones to LO during pull-down. Zones fighting each other slow the chill. These micro tweaks sound small. In practice, they shave minutes off cooldown and make the air feel dramatically more crisp at your skin. Number 4, cabin filter. A suffocated evaporator can't cool what it can't breathe. A cabin air filter loaded with pollen, lint, and leaf dust strangles airflow and makes your blower sound busy while nothing cold hits you. Slide the glove box down, pop the access door, and inspect. If the pleats are gray-black, furry, or shedding debris, you've found your bottleneck. Replace with an OEM quality or low-restriction aftermarket filter. Avoid ultra-dense perfume bricks that smell nice but restrict flow. Feel the difference immediately. Vent velocity jumps, evaporator heat exchange improves, and the system stops sounding strained. If you drive in dusty zones after wildfire season or behind construction, shorten your change interval. While you're there, vacuum the airbox and make sure leaves aren't sitting on the upstream side, ready to clog again. Most drivers never touch this. You now have more airflow for the same compressor effort, meaning colder air reaches you faster. If you're finding this helpful, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss the challenge at the end of the video that will keep your every ride running stronger, colder, and longer. Number 5, condenser cleanliness. The condenser is your heat dump. If its fins are packed with bugs, tar, or road grit, the refrigerant can't shed heat, so it returns to the evaporator too warm and your vents plateau at kinda cool. With the engine off and cool, rinse through the grill at a shallow angle to wash debris out of the fins, not deeper into them. If the fins are bent, use a fin comb lightly. Check that nothing blocks the lower fascia opening. Now watch behavior. Cold on the highway but warm in traffic usually screams dirty condenser or a weak cooling fan. When you hit AC at idle, that electric fan should spin up. If it doesn't, diagnose the relay, motor, or shroud. A clean condenser plus a healthy fan turns only cold while moving into cold anytime. This one fix is notorious for waking an underperforming system right up. Number 6, win the pregame. You're not trying to cool the air, you're cooling a cabin full of heat-soaked mass. Reduce the heat load and the AC wins early. Park under cover when possible. If not, deploy a reflective windshield sunshade every time you step away in hot weather. Quality shades cut interior temps dramatically by reflecting IR, rather than letting the dash soak and re-radiate it. Side benefits: your steering wheel stops branding your palms and plastics live longer. If safe, leave a tiny window crack to vent the stack effect heat. Legal window tint with high IR rejection compounds the benefit by slashing solar gain through side glass. These aren't comfort tricks. They make the first 5 minutes of AC easier. Lower thermal mass equals faster pull-down, shorter compressor duty cycles, and colder perceived air sooner. Most drivers won't bother. The ones who do get in and feel instant relief. Number 7, refrigerant charge. Refrigerant volume isn't a set and forget for life. Systems can lose a few percent each year through seals and service ports. Slightly undercharged systems suffer. Evaporator pressure or temperature curves shift, superheat goes off, and vent temps stall well above potential. If your AC was frosty 2 summers ago and now feels average, test it. A shop can recover, vacuum, leak check, and recharge precisely. DIYers can use a manifold gauge set and a probe thermometer to gauge performance. Target specs don't eyeball can it to more is more, because overcharge raises head pressure and hurts cooling. After a correct charge and a proper vacuum pull, you'll feel the snap return. Colder air sooner, steadier temps at idle, and less cycling. Proactive charge correction every few years keeps the system at its design sweet spot instead of slowly fading to fine. Number 8. Belt, clutch, and compressor health. Even a perfect charge can't overcome a lazy drive. The serpentine belt drives the compressor. Glazing, cracks, or looseness equals slip, which equals less compressor work and lukewarm vents under load. Inspect in bright light. If it's questionable, replace the belt and the tensioner. The feel at the vents often improves immediately. Then watch the compressor clutch. When you command AC, you should see or hear engagement. Rapid short cycling hints at control, pressure, or thermal issues. No engagement at all could be electrical, pressure switch, or clutch failure. Listen for growls, chirps, or grind. If the clutch gap is too wide on some platforms, a shim can restore firm engagement. Mechanical integrity doesn't just make air colder. It cuts wasted engine effort and protects the compressor from overheating. People call old systems tired. Often they're just underdriven. Number 9. Advanced gain. Underhood heat soaks everything, including the cold low-pressure AC line returning to the compressor. If that line absorbs heat, the refrigerant feeding your evaporator next cycle starts warmer than it needs to. The fix is a cheap stealth upgrade. Wrap the low side line with closed-cell foam pipe insulation and secure it with zip ties. Avoid the high-pressure/hot line. The effect is incremental, but real. Lower heat pickup, slightly colder refrigerant returning to the evaporator, and colder vent temps, especially at idle and crawl speeds where underhood temps peak. Enthusiasts routinely measure a few degrees of improvement at the vents, small on paper, obvious on skin, stacked on top of all the previous steps. It's reversible, costs a few bucks, and takes minutes. Manufacturers often skip this on mass-market trims. You don't have to. Pair it with a clean condenser and proper recirc timing, and you'll swear the system got upsized. 1-week challenge. Day 1 and 2. Purge first routine and fresh to recirc timing and 1-notch fan. Day 3 and 4. New cabin filter and condenser, rinse and sunshade every park. Day 5 and 6. Check belt and tensioner. Verify fan behavior at idle with AC on. Day 7. Gauge check and correct charge. Optionally wrap the low side line. Symptoms of a bad oxygen sensor. Number 1. Check engine light. Comes on. One of the first indications of a bad oxygen sensor is often an illuminated check engine light on your dashboard. A faulty O2 sensor is one of the most common triggers for the check engine warning in many vehicles. The car's computer continuously monitors the O2 sensors, so if a sensor's readings go out of range or the sensor stops responding, the system will turn on the check engine light and store a trouble code. In newer cars, you can scan for specific O2 sensor codes like P0130 to P0141 series to confirm a sensor issue. Even in older models from the 80s and 90s, a failing oxygen sensor can trigger a service engine soon, light, or similar warning if the car is equipped with electronic fuel injection. Don't ignore a check engine light. If your car is high mileage, there's a good chance the O2 sensor is to blame. Number 2. Poor fuel economy. Have you noticed you're filling up at the gas station more often than usual? A bad O2 sensor can hurt your gas mileage significantly. When the sensor fails, it may send incorrect data to the engine control module. The engine might then run rich, burning more fuel than necessary. You could lose a lot of fuel efficiency because the computer can't properly adjust the air-fuel ratio. In some cases, you might see your miles per gallon drop sharply. A failing sensor can also cause the engine to run open loop, which is less efficient. Keep an eye on your fuel gauge, and if you suspect a sudden decrease in fuel economy, an oxygen sensor that's on its way out could be the culprit. This symptom tends to affect all vehicles, old or new. The difference is newer cars might log it in long-term fuel trim data, while older ones simply run rich. Either way, poor gas mileage combined with a check engine light is a strong hint your O2 sensor needs checking. Number 3. Rough idle or loss of power. A bad oxygen sensor can disrupt your engine's overall performance. You may notice the engine idling roughly and a general loss of power during driving. The O2 sensor feeds data that helps control engine timing and fuel delivery. When that data is wrong, the engine may struggle to run smoothly. Your acceleration might feel sluggish or jerky, especially when you press the gas pedal. The car could feel slower than normal climbing hills or reaching highway speeds. Essentially, the engine isn't tuning itself correctly because it's getting bad information about the air-fuel mixture. In both new and older cars, this can happen. The difference is that a modern ECU will try to compensate in other ways, whereas an older engine might just run poorly without much compensation. If you experience a continuously rough idle, surging, or power loss, it's worth having the oxygen sensor checked as a possible cause. Number 4. Engine misfires and stalling. In more severe cases, a failing O2 sensor can lead to engine misfires or even stalling. If the sensor is giving a false lean reading, the engine may run too rich, or if it gives a false rich reading, the engine may run too lean. Either situation can cause cylinders to misfire. You might feel the engine skip or jerk, especially under acceleration, as one or more cylinders fail to ignite properly. At idle or coming to a stop, the engine might stall out unexpectedly due to the unbalanced fuel mixture. These symptoms can be scary, as the car may shake or suddenly lose power while driving or idling. If you notice frequent stalling or popping or spitting from the exhaust, it's a clear sign something is wrong with the combustion. A bad O2 sensor is a common cause of these issues, as it throws off the delicate fuel-air balance and ignition timing. In some cases, you might even hear unusual noises like sputtering, pinging, or knocking from the engine because of improper combustion. Before we move on, if you're finding this information useful, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out and ensures you won't miss future tips on car maintenance. Number 5. Strong exhaust odor. A failing oxygen sensor can cause your engine to run rich, meaning excess fuel is being burnt in the engine. This often produces a strong, unpleasant smell in the exhaust. One common odor is a sulfuric, rotten egg smell, caused by too much unburnt fuel overheating the catalytic converter and creating sulfur byproducts. You might also smell a strong gasoline odor from the tailpipe, because a bad O2 sensor may lead to fuel not being combusted completely, sending raw fuel into the exhaust stream. If every time you step out of your running car, you notice a pungent smell, it could point to an oxygen sensor issue. Do note, a rotten egg smell can also indicate a failing catalytic converter, but these problems are related. A bad O2 sensor can actually cause catalytic converter trouble by allowing excess fuel to burn in the converter. In any case, unusual exhaust odors combined with other symptoms here are a red flag for O2 sensor trouble. Number 6. Black smoke from the exhaust. If you see dark black smoke pouring out of your tailpipe, that's a sign your engine is running much too rich. A bad oxygen sensor can definitely cause this. When the sensor fails, the engine might dump extra fuel continuously, and the excess unburned fuel turns into sooty, black exhaust smoke. You might especially notice black smoke when revving the engine or during startup. This symptom is more common in older vehicles, or any car where the sensor failure makes the engine revert to a default rich setting. Newer cars can also emit black smoke if an O2 sensor is bad, though modern catalytic converters try to burn off excess fuel. If you do observe black smoke along with terrible fuel mileage, an illuminated check engine light, and maybe a rough running engine, there's a good chance the oxygen sensor has failed. Important: driving with black smoke coming out isn't just bad for the environment, it can quickly foul your catalytic converter and even lead to engine deposits. It should be addressed as soon as possible. Number 7. Failed emissions test. In areas that require emissions testing, a bad oxygen sensor is a common cause of failing the test. The O2 sensor is integral to keeping your emissions within spec, since it helps the engine burn fuel efficiently and cleanly. If the sensor isn't working, the car may produce higher levels of pollutants due to an imbalanced mixture. During an emissions or smog test, elevated emissions levels or an O2 sensor-related diagnostic code will result in a failure. In fact, if your vehicle fails an emissions test, a faulty oxygen sensor is one of the likely culprits. Many modern scan tools used in testing will pinpoint an O2 sensor fault immediately. So, if you got a rejection on your inspection report citing high emissions or a catalyst and O2 sensor monitor not ready, it's time to check that sensor. For older vehicles, even if you don't have formal tests, you might notice excess smoke or smell, which are signs of high emissions. Either way, a healthy oxygen sensor is essential for your car to run cleanly. Number 8. Overheating or damaged catalytic converter. A bad oxygen sensor, if left unresolved, can damage your catalytic converter, one of the most expensive parts of your exhaust system. When the O2 sensor fails and causes the engine to run rich, the excess unburned fuel can end up igniting inside the catalytic converter itself. This not only produces that rotten egg smell and black smoke, but can also make the converter overheat. In some cases, the catalytic converter's temperature can spike so high that the internal components melt or break apart. You might notice symptoms of a failing catalytic converter, such as a sulfur smell, rattling noises under the car, or even glowing red heat from the converter after a drive. An oxygen sensor that's sending bad data is often at fault for this, as it leads to the chain reaction of fuel burning where it shouldn't. Replacing a catalytic converter is far more costly than replacing an O2 sensor, so catching the bad sensor in time can save you a huge repair bill. If you ever suspect an O2 sensor issue, don't delay. It's much cheaper to fix the sensor than to let it ruin your catalytic converter. A failing oxygen sensor can cause a cascade of problems. However, it's important to remember that these signs can sometimes be caused by other issues as well. Always perform a proper diagnosis or have a professional mechanic confirm the root cause before swapping parts. Modern vehicles can output specific error codes to help pinpoint a faulty O2 sensor. 9 cold start mistakes that wreck your engine. Avoid these. Number 1. Revving the engine. Right after startup, one of the worst cold start habits is revving the engine immediately. Cold oil is thick and hasn't reached vital components like camshafts, bearings, and turbochargers. Revving at this stage forces metal to grind without protection, creating microscars that add up over time. Aluminum pistons also haven't expanded to their proper clearances, so extra friction occurs when you floor it cold. Some drivers mistakenly think revving warms the car faster, but it just accelerates wear. The smart move? Let the engine stabilize for 20 to 30 seconds, then drive gently. Keep revs low until the temperature gauge climbs. Once warmed, the engine parts expand, oil thins, and lubrication is at its best. Skip the cold red line. Those first few minutes determine years of engine life. Number 2. Prolonged idling. To warm up the car. Old advice said to let your car idle for 10 minutes in winter. That might have made sense with carburetors, but modern fuel-injected engines don't need it. In fact, long idling on a cold engine can cause damage. Why? Because cold idling runs a rich fuel mix. Extra fuel doesn't burn fully, washing oil off cylinder walls and thinning lubrication. It also promotes carbon buildup on pistons, valves, and exhaust systems. Meanwhile, the engine stays cold longer, prolonging the period of high wear. Today's engines need just 30 to 60 seconds of idle for oil circulation. After that, the best warm-up is light driving. Under gentle load, oil, coolant, and transmission fluid reach temperature faster than they ever will in the driveway. Prolonged idling wastes fuel, pollutes, and shortens engine life. Warm up smarter, not longer. Number 3. Using the wrong oil in cold weather. Oil viscosity is critical in cold starts. That first number before the W, like 0W20 or 5W30, tells you how easily oil flows in winter. Use oil that's too thick, and it behaves like syrup at startup, delaying lubrication. In extreme cold, thick oil can even trigger the filter's bypass valve, sending unfiltered oil through the engine. That means debris grinding against sensitive surfaces until the oil thins. Modern engines are engineered for low-viscosity synthetics, like 0W20 or 5W30, which flow faster and protect better in cold conditions. Stick to your manufacturer's recommendation, and if you live in freezing regions, go with full synthetic. It stays fluid even below zero. Old or dirty oil also loses its cold start protection, so don't push your change intervals. Right oil, right viscosity, right schedule. That's how you protect your engine during cold starts. If you're finding these tips useful, hit that like button and subscribe. We dive deep into car care with advice most drivers never hear, and it could save your engine thousands of miles. Number 4. Skipping the block heater in extreme cold. Drivers in cold regions often ignore the block heater, thinking, "My car starts fine without it." Sure, it may start, but the wear from that frozen start is brutal. Studies show a single cold start at 5 degrees Celsius can equal the wear of a long highway drive. Below 20 degrees Celsius, it's even worse. Block heaters pre-warm coolant and oil, making starts easier and reducing the harsh friction of dry, cold metal on metal. They also get cabin heat flowing faster and improve early fuel economy. Plugging in for 2 to 3 hours before driving makes a huge difference. Many skip it out of inconvenience, but in severe cold, using your block heater is one of the cheapest and smartest ways to extend engine life. If your car has one, use it. If not, consider installing one. That small habit could save you from big repair bills. Number 5. Taking only short trips. Modern engines need time to reach full operating temperature, usually 195 to 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Short trips don't give them that chance. Instead, the engine spends most of its time cold running rich, accumulating condensation and letting fuel leak past rings into the oil. The result? Sludge under your oil cap, diluted oil, and corrosion inside the engine. Sensors, catalytic converters, and exhaust components also suffer from never reaching self-cleaning heat levels. Lots of short trips mean lots of cold starts and lots of wear. If short drives are unavoidable, combine errands into one longer trip when possible. At least once a week, give your car a 20 to 30-minute run on the highway to burn off moisture and clear out deposits. If you can't, plan on more frequent oil changes. Otherwise, those innocent quick trips will quietly shorten your engine's lifespan. Number 7. Neglecting coolant and thermostat. Health. Engines don't just rely on oil during cold starts, the cooling system matters too. Using old or diluted coolant in winter risks freezing, which can crack radiators or even the block itself. Proper antifreeze mix prevents this and ensures smooth warm-up. Equally overlooked is the thermostat. If it's stuck open, your car may never reach proper temperature, leaving it to run rich indefinitely. That means poor fuel economy, increased emissions, and accelerated wear. You'll notice lukewarm cabin heat or a temperature gauge that barely moves off. See left unfixed, a cool running engine accumulates sludge and carbon while wearing itself out prematurely. Always check your coolant before winter and replace a bad thermostat promptly. An engine that warms up fully is one that lasts. Number 6. Unnecessary cold starts. Many drivers think they're maintaining their car by starting it every few days in winter, even without driving. In reality, they're just piling on unnecessary cold start wear. Each cold start dumps excess fuel, thins oil, and stresses parts before anything's warm. Brief idling doesn't recharge the battery much either. In fact, it can leave it weaker if the alternator doesn't run long enough. If you're worried about the battery, a maintainer or trickle charger is far better than random cold starts. Modern fuel and lubricants are designed to sit for weeks without harm. If your car must sit, leave it off or take it for a decent drive instead of start and stop. Every unnecessary cold start is wasted wear. Save them for when you actually need to drive. Number 8. Ignoring cold start noises. Many drivers dismiss rattles, ticks, or knocks on startup as normal. But these sounds are your engine pleading for attention. A brief rattle may be oil-drained timing components. Persistent ticking could be lifters or cam phasers starving for lubrication. Pistons slap or bearing knocks when cold can signal worn parts that only quiet once clearances tighten with heat. Ignoring these symptoms lets damage snowball into costly repairs. Sometimes the fix is simple. a better oil filter with an anti-drainback valve, or using a lighter oil grade in winter. Other times, it's a failing part that needs attention before catastrophic failure. Don't cover your ears. Cold start noises are your engine's way of telling you something's wrong. Listen, act, and save yourself from bigger headaches down the road. Number 9. Treating a diesel like a gasoline engine. Diesels suffer more in the cold than gas engines. They rely on compression ignition, which is harder when it's freezing. That's why diesels use glow plugs or intake heaters. Cranking before glow plugs finish heating is a mistake that causes rough starts and unburned fuel-coating cylinder walls. Another pitfall is fuel gelling. Summer diesel can wax up in the lines and filters when temps drop, starving the engine. Drivers who don't use winter-grade diesel or anti-gel additives learn this the hard way. Diesels also take longer to warm up, so flooring it right after startup creates heavy soot and strain. The fix is simple. Wait for glow plugs, use a block heater in harsh climates, fuel up with winter diesel, and drive gently until warm. Treating your diesel like a gas car in winter is one of the fastest ways to wreck it. Cold starts are inevitable, but cold start damage isn't. Avoid these 9 mistakes, and you'll drastically cut engine wear in the most vulnerable moments. Keep starting gently, use the right fluids, and let your car warm up properly by driving it, not idling it. Treat your engine right when it's cold, and it'll repay you with years of reliable service. Most cars die early. These 11 habits took mine to 700,000 miles. Number 1. Take occasional highway tune-ups to burn carbon. Modern direct injection engines can accumulate carbon on intake valves over time. An effective, low-effort habit is to take the car on a longer highway or high-load drive every few weeks. This is the so-called Italian tune-up, running the engine at sustained higher RPMs and load to heat it up and burn off deposits. Research and mechanics confirm it works. A high-speed run can raise cylinder and exhaust temps enough to break up carbon buildup. Indeed, one experienced mechanic suggests a monthly highway run of about 1+ hour, so the engine computer calibrates fuel injection and the engine clears out carbonization. So make it a habit. Once a month or so, hit the freeway at legal speed for 20+ minutes. This simple action rejuvenates engine efficiency and longevity by clearing gunk that short local trips leave behind. Number 2. Avoid overloading or excessive towing. Every extra pound your car carries makes the engine, transmission, brakes, and suspension work harder than they were designed to. Overloading doesn't just sap performance, it accelerates wear across the board. When you tow trailers beyond the rating or haul unnecessary cargo, the engine has to run at higher RPMs under constant stress, generating more heat and straining critical components. Even roof racks and boxes you're not using add drag and weight that silently shorten your car's life. The solution is simple. Respect your vehicle's rated payload and towing limits. Remove junk, tools, or unused gear from the trunk and cabin whenever possible. A lighter car runs cooler, handles better, and puts far less stress on its engine and drivetrain. And if you do tow heavy loads, follow up with strict maintenance fluid checks, brake inspections, and cooling system care. Remember, a leaner car is a longer-lasting car. Number 3. Heed warnings and inspect regularly. Always pay attention to what your car is telling you. If the check engine light comes on, don't delay diagnostics. These lamps are an early warning system. A minor misfire or sensor error ignored can evolve into major damage. Likewise, strange noises, vibrations, or drops in performance are red flags. Make it a habit to listen for knocks, clanks, or whining under the hood. As one service guide notes, reduced fuel economy, odd noises, or vibration signal first warnings of underlying issues. Catching these early prevents small faults from turning into catastrophic failures. In practice, park your car in a quiet spot occasionally and listen to it idle, or inspect under the hood for leaks. And when you do wash the car, you'll spot oil drips or cracks before they become problems. By staying alert and proactive, you can fix tiny problems today and dramatically extend your engine's life tomorrow. If you're finding these tips helpful, hit that like button and subscribe. It takes a second, but it helps us bring you more content that saves you money and keeps your drive running longer. Number 4. Use top-tier fuel and clean your fuel system. Not all gasoline is equal. Always buy fuel from reputable stations that turn over fresh stock. Stick to the octane rating your engine needs. Higher octane than required usually yields no benefit. If you drive infrequently, gasoline can go stale. In that case, add a quality fuel stabilizer before storing or occasionally run the tank low only for storage purposes. Further, keep your fuel system clean. Periodically treat it with a high-quality injector cleaner or even have a professional fuel system cleaning done. As one dealership service guide notes, a clean fuel system reduces the strain on engine components such as fuel pumps and injectors, extending their lifespan. In practice, use fuels with strong detergent additives brands like Shell, Chevron, or Mobil. Top off the tank sometimes to prevent condensation. And every 30,000 to 50,000 miles consider an injector clean. These steps ensure smooth combustion and protect parts, which literally prolongs engine life. Number 5. Avoid frequent short trips. Cars run best when their engine oil and coolant reach normal operating temperature. If you only do 5-minute runs around town, the oil never fully circulates and can sludge up. Studies and experts warn that repeated short cold trips greatly increase engine wear. Every time you start cold and shut off quickly, unburned fuel and condensation build up in the oil. Over time, this creates sludge that blocks oil passages. Habitually, try to combine errands so the engine runs at least 15 to 20 minutes each outing. If you can't avoid a short trip, compensate by doing a longer drive every week or so. Mechanics even recommend periodic real excursions. For example, one expert suggests taking your car on a highway run for an hour monthly to fully heat and flush out deposits. Minimize tiny cold starts, drive long enough to warm up, and do a solid long drive occasionally. Your oil will stay cleaner, and your engine parts will last much longer. Number 6. Use high-quality oil and follow severe service intervals. Never skimp on oil or oil changes. Always use the grade of oil recommended by your manufacturer because synthetics resist breakdown far longer than conventional oil. Synthetic oil degrades more slowly, protecting bearings and pistons for many thousands of miles longer. Also pay attention to your driving. If you do a lot of short, cold trips or hard starts, your car falls under the severe service category. That usually means having the oil change interval. Mechanics note that under severe conditions you may need to change oil and filter twice as often as normal. In practice, follow your manual's schedule, but if you mainly do short hops or haul heavy loads, err on the side of more frequent changes. Always use top-tier synthetic oil and don't stretch your change interval. Stick to the service schedule or shorter when the going is tough. Number 7. Keep all fluids fresh. A healthy cooling system is one of the most important defenses against engine failure. Overheating remains a top reason engines die early, and most cases are preventable. Always check coolant levels regularly and maintain the proper water-to-antifreeze ratio. This not only prevents freezing in winter, but also protects against corrosion inside the radiator and engine block. Over time, coolant loses its ability to carry heat and resist rust, so follow your manufacturer's schedule for flushing and replacing it. Don't overlook the basics. Inspect radiator hoses, clamps, and connections for cracks, bulges, or leaks. A sudden coolant loss can destroy an engine in just minutes. Beyond coolant, every major system depends on clean fluids. Brake fluid, transmission fluid, and even power steering fluid can degrade and cause overheating or component wear if ignored. Treat every fluid change as critical maintenance. Fresh coolant and fluids keep temperatures stable, components protected, and your engine alive for the long haul. Number 8. Replace air and fuel. Filters regularly. Think of your air and fuel filters as your engine's lungs and bloodstream. When they're clogged, everything struggles. A dirty air filter starves the engine of oxygen, forcing it to run rich with excess fuel. That extra fuel doesn't fully burn, leaving behind carbon deposits that increase internal wear and cut fuel economy. On the fuel side, a neglected filter allows rust, dirt, and tank debris to reach injectors or the pump. That grit acts like sandpaper inside precision parts, which can lead to costly failures. The fix is simple but often ignored. Replace the air filter roughly every 12 to 15,000 miles and the fuel filter around 30 to 60,000 miles, depending on your car's design. Always check your owner's manual for exact intervals. A smart routine is to inspect both filters whenever you change your oil. Fresh filters let your engine breathe cleaner, burn fuel more efficiently, run cooler, and last much longer. Number 9. Inspect belts, hoses, and spark plugs. Your engine relies on a few unsung heroes: belts, hoses, and spark plugs. Ignore them, and you're setting yourself up for breakdowns or worse. Timing belts, for instance, usually need replacing around 60,000 to 100,000 miles. If one snaps, the pistons and valves can collide, often destroying the engine instantly. Even serpentine belts, which power essentials like your alternator and water pump, dry out, crack, and eventually snap with age. Radiator hoses are just as critical, as a burst hose can dump coolant in seconds, leaving your engine overheating before you even notice. Spark plugs wear gradually, but worn plugs lead to misfires, rough idle, higher fuel consumption, and unnecessary strain on the engine. Follow your manual's replacement intervals and make a habit of inspecting belts, hoses, and plugs at every oil change. Prevention here is cheap, but skipping it can mean catastrophic damage or being stranded roadside with a dead engine. Number 10. Warm up gently. Forget the old advice about long idling. Modern engines are built differently. In fact, extended idling does more harm than good because the engine runs rich, builds carbon deposits, and takes longer to reach proper temperature. The smarter move is simple. Start the car, wait a few seconds for oil pressure to stabilize, then drive off gently. Light load driving warms the engine and fluids far faster than sitting in the driveway wasting fuel. In very cold weather, give it 20 to 30 seconds before rolling, but avoid revving a cold engine just to wake it up. On the flip side, if you've been towing, racing, or pushing the car hard, don't shut it off instantly. Let the engine idle briefly so turbos and coolant can shed excess heat safely. In practice, drive smoothly after startup, avoid unnecessary idling, and cool down gently after hard runs. These habits drastically cut hidden wear and extend engine life. Number 11. Drive smoothly and anticipate stops. Your driving style directly affects engine and drivetrain life. Aggressive acceleration, frequent redlining, and hard braking all stress components. By contrast, smooth throttle application and gradual stops reduce strain on the engine, transmission, and brakes. Habitually anticipate traffic, accelerate gently, and coast or brake smoothly rather than inching up on the brake pedal at the last second. Keep RPMs modest and let the transmission do the work rather than lugging it at low RPM in a high gear. Not only does this save fuel, it also prevents wear on engine bearings, gearbox synchronous, and even suspension parts. In practice, pretend you're carrying a cup of coffee. Any sudden jolt could spill. As one guide puts it, accelerate gently and anticipate stops. This driving habit can easily add tens of thousands of miles to engine and component life. These are all habits that took my car to 700,000 miles, so these are my own observations, not guaranteeing the results of these. 9 mistakes that destroy turbo engines fast. Mistake number 1, gunning the engine cold. One of the biggest killers is accelerating immediately after a cold start. When your engine first fires up, the oil is still thick and hasn't reached the turbo's bearings yet. Slash Gear warns that if you accelerate right after startup, the turbo will start building boost before it's protected, leading to metal-on-metal contact and heat buildup. Remember, a turbocharger spins insanely fast up to 220,000 RPM and relies on a thin oil film for protection. Flooring it too soon forces that spinning assembly to run without proper lubrication. The result? Premature wear on bearings and shafts, and turbo damage almost from the first drive. Always give the engine a brief warm-up, idle 30 to 60 seconds, then drive gently until the oil is flowing freely. Treat your turbo like a sprinter. It needs time to warm up before going full speed. Number 2. Skipping oil changes and using dirty oil. Your turbo lives on oil, so dirty oil is deadly. Even if you only drive a few miles, skipping oil changes allows grime to build up. Gear explains that oil contamination is one of the most damaging things you can do to a turbo. The turbo's bearings spin at extreme speed with only a thin oil film for protection. If particles or sludge block those tiny oil passages, the bearings wear out fast. Dirty oil literally scorches or scores the shaft, leading to catastrophic failure down the road. To avoid this, follow strict oil service intervals and always use high-quality oil. Using cheap or old oil effectively starves the turbo of lubrication. And as Driving Line notes, lack of proper lubrication will kill the bearings in short order. Always clean, fresh oil is non-negotiable. A contaminated oil supply will destroy a turbocharger far quicker than you'd expect. Number 3. Running on bad or low-octane fuel. Many modern turbo cars require high-octane gasoline, yet drivers sometimes cheap out or mix in homemade fuels. Using low-quality or wrong octane fuel in a turbo engine is a recipe for disaster. Under boost, everything in the combustion chamber runs hotter. Inferior fuel can ignite too early, causing pinging that damages pistons, spark plugs, and even cylinder walls. This unchecked knock not only hurts the engine but also stresses the turbo. Gear points out that most turbocharged cars are built to run on premium fuel 91 octane or higher. If you fill a turbo car with regular gas, the engine may retard timing cutting power, but that still doesn't fully protect the hardware. In other words, your turbo will suffer. Always use the manufacturer's recommended fuel. By paying extra for proper high-octane, knock-resistant gas, you'll avoid the violent detonation that can quickly wreck a turbo. Number 4. Abrupt throttle inputs. Slamming or chopping the throttle violently can literally tear your turbo apart. This erratic driving causes turbo surge. When you suddenly lift off or floor the gas, the high-pressure air in the intake has nowhere to go and whips back through the compressor. Driving Line warns that surging is extremely hard on the compressor end of the turbo, and prolonged surging will eventually beat the thrust bearing to death. In plain terms, burst airflow and pressure spikes can flex and crack components. In serious cases of surge, even the compressor wheel can explode under the stress. This often happens if you've overboosted or improperly sized a turbo. It lives on the surge line. To avoid this mistake, be smooth with the throttle. Avoid sudden on-off pushes, especially at high RPM. If your car has a boost controller or blow-off valve, make sure it's working. A properly tuned wastegate or BOV system vents excess pressure and prevents that collapse of airflow. Keep it gently ramp up and lift off gradually so you never induce damaging compressor surge. If you're finding these turbo tips useful, hit like and subscribe. It will help us to create more content and help other beginner drivers to maintain their cars. Number 5. Letting dirt or debris enter the intake. A surprisingly common oversight is a neglected air filter or intake. Any foreign object sucked into the turbo will be shredded by the compressor blades. Driving Line reveals that intake debris accounts for 80% of all turbo failures. Even tiny particles hitting at high speed gouge the blades and housing. Essentially, a dirty air filter can't stop everything. Tiny grit gets through and can unbalance or break the rotor. Once the turbo's compressor or turbine wheels get nicked, efficiency plummets and vibration follows, and it's only a matter of time before catastrophic failure. The cure is simple. Always maintain your intake filter. Use a quality filter, clean or replace it regularly, and double-check any intake modifications or couplings. Preventing one stray pebble from entering saves you thousands in turbo repairs. Number 6. Overboosting or exceeding turbo specs. Pushing your turbo beyond its intended limits. Whether through aggressive tuning, removing wastegate restrictions, or bolting on bigger turbos without proper supporting mods can instantly shorten its life. Once the engine demands more air than the turbo was designed to deliver, overspeeding occurs. As Driving Line explains, this forces the turbo shaft to spin even faster than its safe speed, often until something snaps. The turbine wheel will fail first, sometimes explosively. Even stock setups can overspeed if you add nitrous or giant injectors without recalibration. Always keep boost pressures within factory or tune-approved limits. If you upgrade the turbo, rejet and tune the engine, and make sure a wastegate is always letting off excess pressure. In modern cars, running uncontrolled high boost or mismatched turbo hardware will kill the turbo fast. Number 7. Driving hard in extreme heat. Your turbo already generates tremendous heat. Pushing it for long periods, especially on a hot day or under heavy load, compounds that stress. Slash Gear calls out extended driving in hot weather as a killer. On scorching days or long freeway pulls, the intake air and engine bay stay hot. The turbo heat soaks. It absorbs more heat than it can shed. This means less dense air, lower performance, and critically, oil that breaks down and thins out. Thin oil can't protect the turbo parts effectively. If the cooling system or intercooler is already under strain, the turbo's turbine housing can reach extreme temperatures and suffer cracks or warped blades. To avoid this, watch your temperatures. Use high-quality synthetic oil and keep coolant topped up. Under very hot or hard driving conditions, give your engine an easy pull or let-off boost before stopping. Remember, heat is a silent killer. Don't let your turbo cook itself to death. Number 8. Killing the engine. Immediately after a hard run. You've just finished a spirited highway run or a hard track lap. Now don't turn off the engine right away. This mistake lets all the heat and oil get trapped in the hot turbo. Slash Gear warns that killing the engine stops the oil/coolant flow through the turbo. The turbo stays at peak temperature and the oil inside cokes. Those carbon deposits then clog the tiny oil return passages. Next startup, you'll have poor oil flow, and the turbo starts life with grit and heat soaked in. Over time, this oil coking and heat soak cycle will destroy the turbo's bearings and seals. The fix. After any hard driving, let the engine idle for 30 to 60 seconds before shutting off. This keeps oil and coolant circulating through the turbo, so it cools gradually. In very hot conditions, even a bit longer idling can save your turbo from a premature end. Number 9. Improper turbo modifications. Finally, don't ruin a perfectly good turbo by installing the wrong one or pushing it too far. Many enthusiasts strap on a bigger turbo for more power, but if the turbo doesn't match the engine's needs, it can spend its life in the danger zone. Driving Line gives an example of an engine fitted with a much larger compressor wheel. It ended up nearly always in the meat of the surge line, and it will never enjoy a lengthy service life. An oversized or incorrectly spec'd turbo constantly surges and overheats. If your turbocharger is heavily modified without proper supporting hardware, you're asking for trouble. Always choose a turbo sized for your engine's flow and horsepower. When in doubt, follow tuning guidelines or professional advice. A mismatched turbo can kill itself before you even notice anything's wrong. Each of these mistakes targets the turbo's weak spots: lubrication, cooling, and proper airflow. By avoiding them, to warm up gently, use the right fluids and fuel, keep the intake clean, drive smoothly, and give your turbo time to cool, you'll drastically extend your turbo engine's life. At the end, these are just tips. We are not experts in cars, so don't take these tips as mechanical advice. How to reset throttle position. Sensor. 4 quick TPS secrets. Secret number 1. The key on pedal. Relearn trick. One of the quickest ways to reset your throttle sensor is using nothing more than your ignition key and gas pedal. It sounds almost too easy, but this trick can prompt your car's computer to recalibrate the TPS without any tools. Here's how it works. Ignition on, engine off. Turn the key to the on position without starting the engine. This powers up the electronic control unit and the throttle controls. You may hear some whirring sounds as the system wakes up. That's normal. Slow pedal presses. Next, slowly press the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor and release it completely, and repeat this a few times. Doing a couple of smooth full presses helps the ECU learn the full range of the throttle from fully closed to fully open. Some mechanics call this a pedal dance. It's like reminding your car, hey, this is what 0% throttle and 100% throttle feel like. Alternate method. The 5-second hold. There's a slight variation of this trick that many drivers swear by. With the ignition on, push the gas pedal to the floor and hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds, then release. After that, turn the key off. This method essentially does the same thing. It clears out the old throttle settings and tells the computer to register the closed and open positions anew. It's been known to work on several models. After performing the key on pedal trick, go ahead and start the engine. Let it idle for a moment and see if it runs smoother. Many times you'll notice an immediate improvement in throttle response. The beauty of this secret is its simplicity. No wrenches, no computers, just your foot and the ignition. It's a quick reboot for your throttle sensor that can cure rough idles and poor acceleration in one go. Remember, every car is a bit different. While most modern vehicles respond to this pedal relearn procedure, a few might not. But don't worry, we have more tricks ahead. Secret number 2. Hard ECU reset via battery disconnect. When in doubt, reboot the system. Just like restarting a glitchy phone or computer, resetting your car's engine control unit can clear any incorrect throttle settings. The secret here is doing an ECU hard reset by disconnecting the battery power, but with a clever twist to make it extra effective. Basic battery reset. The standard approach is to disconnect your car's negative battery terminal for about 5 to 10 minutes. This cuts power to the ECU, which can reset stored throttle position data and other learned settings. Many professionals suggest at least 10 minutes or pressing the brake pedal after disconnecting. Once time's up, reconnect the battery and start the car. This alone often forces the ECU to forget the old TPS calibration and start fresh. Secret trick: the capacitor drain. If you want to ensure absolutely everything is cleared, here's a pro tip most drivers don't know. Disconnect both battery terminals and safely connect the two cable ends together for about 1 to 2 minutes. Important: do this only after the cables are off the battery posts. You can use a jumper wire or even touch the clamps together. And never short a connected battery. We're only linking the cables after they're disconnected from the battery. This trick drains any residual charge from the car's capacitors, completely wiping the ECU's memory of throttle settings. Essentially, it's a full reboot, as if the car's computer came straight from the factory with no learned data. After a hard reset, the engine may take a moment to recalibrate things. Start the car and let it idle. You might notice the idle is a bit unstable at first. That's normal after clearing the memory. The car is relearning the idle and throttle positions from scratch. This battery disconnect reset is especially handy if you've recently replaced the TPS or throttle body, or if the ECU was stuck using bad data. It's a universal method across most brands and models because every vehicle's computer will reset when it loses power. Secret number 3, idle relearn. So you've reset the throttle sensor using the tricks above. What's next? Now, let your car do its part. One secret that many people skip is the idle relearn process. Think of it as teaching your engine to idle nice and smooth with the freshly reset TPS. It only costs a bit of time, but it's crucial for a perfect reset. After performing a TPS reset, start the engine and let the car idle without touching the throttle for about 10 to 15 minutes. Make sure all accessories are off during this time. What's happening is the ECU is quietly adjusting itself. It's checking the airflow and throttle position at idle and figuring out how to maintain a steady idle RPM. Your car is basically doing yoga, finding its center. This patience pays off. By the end of the idle relearn period, you'll often find that the idle RPM has stabilized and the engine runs much smoother. Why is this necessary? When the throttle sensor data is reset, the engine might not immediately know how to hold the idle. It lost its memory of what a proper idle throttle position was. Giving it time at idle is like giving the car a reference point again. In fact, some automakers specifically recommend a long idle after an ECU reset. For example, Ford's procedure after a TPS reset is to let the vehicle idle for at least 15 minutes with no throttle input. During that time, the computer learns the new baseline. Similarly, many mechanics suggest a short test drive afterwards. Once the 10 to 15-minute idle is done, take the car for a gentle spin around the block. Try a mix of light acceleration and coasting. This helps the ECU refine its settings across the RPM range. The idle relearn is a step you do not want to skip. It's simple, yet not common knowledge among everyday drivers. Skipping it can leave your car stalling at stoplights or the idle hunting up and down even after a reset. So be patient and let your car idle its way to a smooth, stable engine. Your TPS reset will be that much more effective for it. Secret number 4. Clean the throttle body for a fresh start. Surprise! Sometimes the secret to resetting your TPS isn't just electronic, it's mechanical maintenance. A dirty or carboned-up throttle body can throw off your throttle position readings and confuse the ECU. In other words, your TPS might be reading a partially clogged throttle as if it were slightly open or closed when it shouldn't be. The fix? Give that throttle body a good cleaning and then reset the TPS. This 1-2 combo can work wonders. Over time, carbon deposits build up inside the throttle body, around the throttle plate. These deposits can prevent the plate from fully closing, effectively altering the baseline throttle position that the sensor reports. Your engine might compensate by learning a wrong idle position. Cleaning the throttle body removes those deposits and often instantly improves airflow and idle quality. It's often enough to resolve sluggish response or rough idle issues by itself. However, and here's the kicker, after cleaning, the ECU might now be out of sync with the nice clean throttle because it was used to the dirty state. That's why pairing a cleaning with a TPS reset plus an idle relearn is the ultimate recipe. You're giving the car a clean slate physically and electronically. How to clean. This isn't a throttle body cleaning tutorial, but in brief, you'd remove the intake hose and spray a throttle body cleaner on a cloth to wipe the inside of the throttle body and plate. Pro tip: don't push the throttle plate open with your fingers on electronic throttles. Have someone press the pedal or carefully rotate it by the actuator if possible. Forcing it can damage the drive-by-wire motor. Clean all the black soot off the edges of the plate and bore. Once it's shiny, put everything back. Then, do a battery disconnect reset or the pedal trick, and let the car idle to relearn as we described. You might be amazed that a car that was stalling or idling at 1,500 RPM calms down to a steady purr. Many drivers don't realize how much gunk on the throttle can mess with the TPS readings. It's a secret fix that often separates the DIY experts from the rest. In fact, if you skip this and keep trying to electronically reset a TPS that's reading a sticky, dirty throttle, you could be chasing your tail. So, if you've never checked your throttle body, give it a look. A good cleaning combined with the reset procedures can make your engine feel like new, with snappier throttle response and stable idle. It's like spring cleaning for your engine's intake, and your TPS will thank you with proper readings. Thanks for watching. If you found these tips helpful, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more car maintenance secrets. Happy driving! No crank, no start, the most common causes. Number 7. Blown fuse or bad relay in the starting circuit. One often overlooked cause of a no-crank situation is a blown fuse or faulty relay that cuts power in the starting circuit. Modern vehicles have fuses and relays for the starter and ignition systems. If a starter relay or a related fuse has failed, turning the key may do nothing at all, no click and no crank, because the electrical signal never reaches the starter motor. As an auto service guide notes, a blown fuse in the starter circuit could be the cause of a no-start problem. Similarly, a bad starter relay will prevent the starter from engaging. Average drivers rarely suspect fuses or relays, so this cause is easily missed. Yet, it's a simple fix if identified. Replace the burned-out fuse or bad relay, and you're back in business. If you've checked the battery and starter and still get absolutely no cranking, take a look at your fuses/relays for the starting system. It's an easy thing to check that could save you a tow truck bill. Number 6. Faulty immobilizer system. Today's cars in the US are usually equipped with an anti-theft immobilizer, a system that can prevent the engine from starting if it doesn't recognize the key or if it suspects a theft attempt. This can silence your starter entirely. In other words, a triggered security system may lead to no crank at all. Mechanics list an engaged anti-theft system among common no-crank causes. Many drivers don't realize that something as simple as using the wrong key, a damaged transponder chip in the key, or even a key fob with a dead battery can trigger the immobilizer and prevent the car from cranking. Why it's overlooked. If you're unaware of the anti-theft system status, you might chase battery or starter problems while the car is actually electronically locked out. A telltale sign is a security indicator light on the dashboard. If that's blinking or on, the car thinks it's being stolen and won't allow a start. In this case, the fix may be as simple as using your backup key or reprogramming the key. Always check that your key is recognized by the car. It's a commonly ignored reason for a no-crank scenario. Number 5. Malfunctioning clutch switch. If your car is automatic, it has a neutral safety switch that only allows the car to start in park or neutral. If it's a manual, there's a clutch pedal switch that requires the clutch be fully depressed to start. These safety interlocks are great until they malfunction or get misaligned, which can fool the car into thinking it's in gear. When that happens, you turn the key and nothing crank at all, just as if you were trying to start the drive. A faulty neutral safety switch is a known cause of crank no-start problems. In fact, a car that won't crank in park but does crank in neutral is a classic sign of this issue. Why it's misunderstood. Many drivers have never heard of this switch, so when it fails, they're left scratching their heads. It's often overlooked because people assume something major is wrong, whereas it could be just this sensor preventing the starter from engaging. To diagnose, you can try shifting to neutral and then starting, or on a manual, press the clutch firmly. If the car starts in neutral but not park, the neutral safety switch may need adjustment or replacement. Similarly, a worn clutch pedal switch can intermittently cause no crank. Some drivers pump the clutch pedal thinking it's a fluke, not realizing the switch is on its way out. The good news is that replacing these switches is generally not very expensive once identified as the culprit. Number 4. Bad ignition switch. The ignition switch is the electrical part that your key or start button activates. It's the bridge between your key turn and the starter motor. If the ignition switch fails, power never gets sent to the starter solenoid, and the engine won't crank. You might turn the key and get dash lights, but the starter circuit is effectively dead. Ignition switches can wear out over time, especially on older vehicles with high mileage or heavy keychains dangling. A faulty ignition switch can mimic the symptoms of a dead battery or bad starter. For example, you turn the key and get no starter noise at all. It may also cause intermittent starting issues, which is confusing. Because it's largely hidden behind the lock cylinder or push button, the ignition switch is often misdiagnosed or overlooked. Drivers might replace the battery and starter only to find the car still won't crank due to a $30 switch hidden in the steering column. One clue is, if you had other weird electrical issues leading up to a no-start flickering accessories, or the engine stalling while driving can be a sign of an ignition switch failing. If you've ruled out the battery and starter, have a look at the ignition switch. It's a critical link in the chain that many forget about. Number 3. Loose or corroded battery connections. Corroded or loose battery terminals are one of the most overlooked causes of no-crank situations. Your battery itself might be perfectly fine, but if the cable clamps are loose or the terminals are covered in corrosion, the starter won't get enough current to crank the engine. A bad connection creates high electrical resistance. It might allow just enough power to dimly light the dash, but not enough to spin the starter motor. This often fools people. You turn the key, maybe hear a faint click, and assume the battery is okay because the lights work. In reality, the battery may be fully charged, but the current can't pass through the corroded or loose connection. Many drivers skip this check entirely and jump straight to blaming the battery or starter. Battery terminal corrosion acts like an insulator, blocking electricity. Likewise, a loose clamp or frayed cable can break the circuit. The fix is simple but often ignored. Clean the battery posts and cable ends thoroughly, and tighten the clamps until they're snug. Don't forget the negative ground connection where the battery cable attaches to the car's frame or engine. A loose or rusty ground will cause the same issue. This quick maintenance step restores full current flow and solves countless no-starts. It's a common culprit that nearly 70% of drivers overlook until shown how easy it is to spot and fix. Number 2. Bad solenoid. If your battery and connections check out, yet all you get is a click when turning the key, the starter motor could be the culprit. The starter is an electric motor that physically spins the engine to start it. Over time, its internal parts, brushes, bearings, solenoid contacts wear down or burn out. When that happens, even a fully charged battery can't get the engine turning. A common sign is one solid click each time you try to start, while your lights and radio still work normally. Sometimes there's no sound at all, just silence, with all accessories working fine. Many drivers assume this must be a dead battery, but that's a mistake. If a jump start doesn't help and your lights don't dim when you turn the key, the starter is likely failing. The starter solenoid can also fail. In most modern cars, the solenoid is built into the starter motor, so if one goes bad, you replace the whole unit. Mechanics often rank starters as the second most common no-crank cause after the battery. Because the starter is hidden deep in the engine bay, many drivers overlook it entirely. But once a car has 100,000 plus miles, starter failure becomes increasingly common. If everything else powers on but the engine won't crank, especially if you hear that click, the starter is likely at fault. Replacing the starter motor usually solves the problem and restores normal starting. Number 1. Weak or dead battery. The number one cause of a no-crank, no-start problem is almost always a dead or weak battery. Car batteries only last a few years, and extreme heat or cold shortens that lifespan even further. When a battery can't hold enough charge or has been drained, it won't deliver the high current needed to spin the starter motor. The result is simple. You turn the key, and either nothing happens, or you hear rapid clicking as the starter solenoid tries and fails to engage. Even a partially drained battery can do this. A common giveaway is when the dash lights or radio come on, but they dim or shut off as soon as you try to crank the engine. Many drivers misread this, thinking, the battery can't be dead if the lights work, but that's false. Lights and radios need very little power compared to the starter motor. Your battery might run accessories for hours while still lacking the amperage to crank the engine once. Another telltale sign is that clicking noise when you turn the key. That's the solenoid chattering from low voltage, basically the starter saying, I don't have enough power. If you hear rapid clicks and the engine won't turn over, the battery is almost always the culprit. The fix is straightforward. Try a jump start first, then have the battery tested under load. If it's old or fails the test, replace it. Also remember, long periods of disuse or cold weather can quietly drain a battery, so always check it first in any no-start situation.